The moment I sat down at the sunlit corner table, I realized the entire restaurant was already whispering, pointing, and recording us on their phones like we were some kind of cruel public spectacle. My so-called friends had spent weeks boasting about the mystery woman they wanted to pair me with, promising a life-changing encounter, but as she walked through the polished glass doors of the brightly lit dining room, their muffled laughter from the adjacent booth made the malicious truth painfully clear. They had orchestrated this entire blind date purely as an arrogant prank, expecting me to storm out in humiliation or join in on their heartless mockery of a woman who clearly did not fit their narrow, superficial standards. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a quick moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs a reminder of human decency, and subscribe to our channel to join our growing family. My name is Julian, and up until that bright Tuesday afternoon, I had allowed myself to be surrounded by people whose lives revolved entirely around status, appearance, and shallow amusement. I had grown up in a modest household where my mother taught me that true grace was defined by how we treat those who feel invisible, but after years of climbing the corporate ladder in the city, I had slowly drifted away from those foundational values. My circle of friends consisted of men like Marcus and Harrison, colleagues who judged worth by expensive tailored suits, luxury cars, and the social clout of the women on their arms. When Marcus had insisted on setting me up on a blind date, claiming he had found the perfect match for my grounded personality, I foolishly trusted that he had genuine intentions. I arrived early at the sun-drenched bistro, wearing a simple gray polo, expecting a pleasant afternoon conversation, entirely unaware that Marcus, Harrison, and a few others had secretly reserved the booth directly behind mine to watch the humiliation unfold. The ambient light of the midday sun flooded through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the elegant restaurant as Clara stepped inside. She moved with a subtle hesitation, her hand clutching the strap of her handbag, her eyes scanning the room with a vulnerability that instantly broke my heart. Clara was a full-figured, plus-sized woman wearing a modest dark teal dress, and while her posture betrayed a deep-seated self-consciousness, her face possessed a striking, gentle elegance that no cruel joke could ever diminish. As she approached our table, the subtle rustle of phone cameras being lifted in the background was unmistakable. Marcus and his group were already snickering behind their menus, holding up their smartphones to capture what they assumed would be my immediate reaction of disgust or horror. They wanted a viral scene, a video of a guy abandoning a date the moment he saw her, all at the expense of a human being's dignity. When Clara reached the table, her eyes met mine, and for a fleeting second, I saw a terrible, familiar pain reflected in her gaze. She wasn't blind to what was happening around us. She heard the soft giggles from the doorway, noticed the pointed cameras, and felt the sudden weight of every judgmental eye in the room judging her physical presence. Her lips trembled slightly as she offered a polite, hesitant greeting, clearly preparing herself for the inevitable rejection she had likely faced far too many times before. She lowered her head, her hands trembling as she adjusted her bag, looking as though she was ready to turn around and run out into the bright afternoon street to preserve whatever shred of pride she had left. In that split second, a wave of profound shame washed over me, not shame because of who she was, but shame that I had ever associated with the monsters who set this up. Instead of standing up to leave or showing even a fraction of the distaste my friends were eagerly waiting for, I slowly pushed my chair back, stood up with complete composure, and pulled out the chair across from me with genuine respect. I looked Clara directly in the eyes, smiled warmly, and spoke softly, welcoming her and thanking her for taking the time to meet me on such a beautiful afternoon. The sudden shift in energy around the table was palpable. The snickering behind us faltered slightly, replaced by a confused silence as Marcus and Harrison leaned forward, wondering why I hadn't played my part in their cruel game. Clara looked up in genuine astonishment, her wide, expressive eyes searching my face for any sign of mockery or deceit, but finding only quiet, sincere warmth. As we both sat down under the bright midday sun, I made a conscious choice to completely ignore the cameras, the whispers, and the poisonous presence of the people behind me. I asked Clara about her day, her interests, and what brought her joy, determined to offer her the absolute best afternoon of her life. At first, her responses were cautious and brief, guarded by years of emotional armor built against a world that had repeatedly treated her as a punchline. But as the minutes ticked by and she realized my attentiveness was entirely real, the tension in her shoulders began to melt away. She began to speak with a rich, soft passion about her work as a high school art teacher, sharing how she dedicated her life to helping teenagers express their hidden pain through painting and sculpture. Listening to her, I was captivated by the extraordinary beauty of her mind and spirit. Clara spoke about her students with a deep, boundless empathy that I hadn't encountered in years within my shallow social circles. She revealed that she had struggled with severe hormonal health issues since her early 20s, conditions that made weight management an overwhelming, lifelong battle despite endless diets and healthy routines. She described the quiet agony of walking into public spaces, knowing that strangers would immediately judge her discipline, her worth, and her character based solely on her size, never bothering to learn the heart beneath the surface. Her honesty was so raw, so pure, and so profoundly brave that I felt a lump form in my throat right there in the middle of the crowded restaurant. As the afternoon light shifted, painting the restaurant in rich gold tones, I found myself opening up to Clara in ways I hadn't done with anyone in a decade. I told her about my mother, about my own loss of direction in life, and how I had allowed myself to be surrounded by superficial noise that made me forget what truly mattered. I confessed the truth about the date, that the men sitting behind us were people I used to call friends, who had set this meeting up as a heartless prank. I didn't hide it from her because she deserved absolute truth. Tears welled in Clara's eyes as I spoke, but they were no longer tears of humiliation, they were tears of profound relief, knowing that despite the cruelty intended by others, she was sitting across from someone who saw her true value. While we were talking, the atmosphere in the restaurant underwent a dramatic, emotional transformation. The patrons who had initially turned to look out of sensational curiosity were now silently listening to our conversation, touched by the quiet nobility unfolding at our table. The waitstaff moved softly, bringing our food with a gentle reverence, sensing that something rare and transformative was taking place. Meanwhile, the table behind us had grown dead silent. Marcus and Harrison sat frozen, their phones lowered, their faces flushed with a sudden, overwhelming sense of guilt as they were forced to sit there and listen to Clara's incredible story of resilience, kindness, and grace. Feeling a sudden need to make things right, I looked Clara in the eyes, stood up from the table, and turned directly toward the group of men who had orchestrated the afternoon. The entire dining room fell completely still as I stood tall under the bright sunlight, looking down at Marcus and Harrison. I didn't raise my voice or scream in anger, because anger would have cheapened the moment. Instead, with absolute calm and undeniable authority, I told them that while they had brought Clara here today expecting to humiliate her, they had instead succeeded only in exposing the utter emptiness of their own lives. I told them that beauty is not found in a surface-level ideal, but in courage, compassion, and character, qualities that Clara possessed in abundance, and qualities that they had utterly surrendered. I reached into my pocket, pulled out enough cash to cover the entire table's tab, placed it firmly on the surface, and turned my back on them forever. When I turned back to Clara, she was wiping away tears, but her head was held high, her posture radiant with a renewed sense of dignity that no one could ever take from her again. I offered her my hand, and as she took it, a quiet wave of applause broke out from a nearby table of an elderly couple who had watched the entire interaction. Within seconds, the applause spread across the sunlit restaurant, with strangers nodding in respect and teary-eyed diners standing to honor the powerful display of humanity they had just witnessed. We walked out of the restaurant together into the warm daylight, leaving behind the shallow world of mockery and stepping into a future built on genuine connection. As we strolled down the bustling avenue, chatting easily and laughing with a lightness that felt completely brand new, I realized that what was meant to be a cruel joke had turned into one of the greatest blessings of my life. Clara had taught me more about courage and beauty in 2 hours than my old friends had taught me in a lifetime, reminding me that the human heart is far too vast to ever be measured by physical appearances alone. What is a moment in your life where someone showed you unexpected kindness when you needed it most, or a time you chose to see beyond someone's appearance to find their true heart? Please take a moment to leave a meaningful comment below sharing your thoughts, feelings, or personal stories, as your words can bring comfort and inspiration to someone who might be struggling today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey.